Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the Pasco School Board of Directors for our study session on Career and College Readiness Initiative. Excuse me. As always, our study sessions are open public meetings which are recorded for broadcast if you look on YouTube and look up Pasco Schools, or if you watch don't know what happened there. Charter Cable TV, 191. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Doctor says water. As I was saying, they're also broadcast on Charter Cable TV channel 191. And we'll welcome Ms. Hall here to lead us in this discussion this afternoon. Thank you.
Fabulous. Good afternoon, Board President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. And I'd just like to thank you for inviting us here today. And we have our wonderful committee members that I'd like to introduce to you now before we get started. And I'll have each of the principals introduce their staff members. So Raul, you want to start first, please?
Yes, good evening. And if I don't see you, Merry Christmas to all. We have Julia Dudley, Wade Barrow, Kathy Bolson, thank you, and Jake Stickle.
Okay, John, you want to introduce your folks here?
Good evening. Here with the Chiawana team, we've got our assistant principals, Mr. Rubacava, Mr. Kessner, Mr. Baker, and Mr. Meredith, and we also have one of our counselors, Mr. Brian Thomas. So it's good to be here.
And I just also like to introduce Dr. Jenny Rodriguez, who's been a part of our planning and team from Delta all along, as well as Seth Johnson, our principal from New Horizons High School. So hopefully all these faces are starting to look familiar with you as we talk about the Career and College Readiness Initiative. And what I'd like to do before we get started is just kind of introduce or orient you to the documents that I've provided in the file folders for you. We'll be referencing those as we go through our presentation today. The first is just a trifold brochure that is information regarding some master schedules that were done by our work groups, and it highlights pros and cons that they'll be referring to. We also have a trimester implementation schedule that was also developed over the summer and processed with our teachers at each of the high schools. And then you have a stapled packet, which is our new curriculum and professional development course proposal. This outlines the process that we will be implementing with all of our new courses, and the questions that we're asking department heads to work with their content teachers in addressing before they submit that for approval. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and have Mr. Setal have our first speaker at the podium.
Good afternoon, Board President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Again, my name is Wade Barrow, school counselor at Pasco High School.
And I'm Julia Dudley, and I teach chemistry at Pasco High School.
In 2014, Washington State's high school graduation requirements increased to 24 credits. Pasco School District requested and was granted a 2-year waiver from the state to support planning. Planning was initiated by establishing a stakeholder core team in December of 2015. This team consisted of over 50 members with representatives from administration, teachers, parents, students, community, and post-secondary partners. A consulting team from Education Northwest was selected to help participants analyze our student achievement data in light of these new graduation requirements, develop an overarching vision and goals over a series of 8 days from January to June, and it was about 50 hours worth of time. In March, the provisional vision and goals were disseminated to all high school staff members for input and help on prioritization. The priorities which surfaced were the need to explore master schedule options, interventions, building a comprehensive guidance system, culture, and communication. To engage our community in this conversation, 2 parent forums were also hosted in May and June. One was held in English and the other was in Spanish. Over 120 parents attended. The vision, goals, and priorities were presented, and community feedback was used to refine our next steps. And some of the top priorities from the community were the following: provide hands-on experience or real life to help guide post-high school decisions, include student voice in options for their future plans and opportunities, extend our technology offerings to better prepare our students for the real world, and connect college and career readiness to academic studies.
In the summer of 2016, the leadership teams from Pasco and Chiawana attended a 3-day workshop. Over 60 staff members attended. Scott Seaman, the executive director of the Association of Washington School Principals, provided helpful information on the 24-credit requirement and shared strategies that other districts across the state had used to support students meeting this requirement. The purpose of this workshop was to develop a common message about our initial plans and share this jointly at the August retreat day for further input. During the 2016-2017 school year, the planning team met bi-monthly to carry out the action plan and facilitate meetings with both Pasco High and Chiawana's leadership teams. Teachers were provided various opportunities to provide feedback during early release time and department meetings. 2 central themes emerged. 1, the need to provide increased immediate interventions for struggling students during the school day, and 2, ways to enhance course options for acceleration tied to college and career opportunities. These themes aligned with priorities from parent and student feedback. Each school researched a variety of master schedules and analyzed each one based on our focus. Leadership teams evaluated more than 7 schedules. You have a handout that has our last 3 that we narrowed it down to. Staff sought input from experts, used mock student schedules to ascertain implications, including risks and rewards for specific subgroups, especially advanced students, special education students, and our English language learners. By spring, potential schedules were narrowed to 2, maintaining the current 6-period semester, or moving to a 5-period trimester. In collaboration with PAE, a teacher survey was conducted to determine their priority schedule. Over 60% of staff felt the trimester schedule would best support our students moving forward to meet the 24-credit requirement. From there, teachers were invited to participate in summer work groups to refine the short and long-term implications for implementation for fall. And I'll now hand it over to John Walwork from Chiawana High School.
One of the first thought I had as you heard this process is, you know, this has been new to all of us. And so I just wanted, before we dive into my slide, to our slide here, a couple of things that just I have learned from this process. One of the things that I've gathered from being involved with this process since the beginning is that this is more than just credits. We really, and I think I've arrived at this, it's taken me a little bit, but I've arrived at this because as I've gone through this process, this really does seem to be the best model of the delivery of our instruction in order to increase on-time graduation rates and college and career readiness. And we're going to show you and share with you a little bit about what is going into that. And if the next slide, never worked a slide up here, there we go. So really want you to key on the 3 words up here when it comes to the benefits of the trimester. Every benefit that we can think of really falls into these three categories: acceleration, exploration, and intervention. So we just want to give you a brief description of what we're thinking when it comes to how's this going to impact students when it comes to those three terms. So first of all, let's talk about acceleration. For many of our kids who school is a successful experience, they do school very well, they're successful in their classes. For these kids, acceleration seems to be a great benefit to, as a result of the trimester system. For example, when it comes to kids that are in that situation, when it comes to new courses that we can create that are linked to college degrees and careers, it gives us an opportunity to do that. Also, other elective classes that are going to be created with the help and voice of parents and students. It'll give our kids an opportunity to accelerate what they already currently do. Acceleration. Mr. Thomas, thoughts you want to share about acceleration?
I just think it also gives our students a good opportunity to see kind of how post-secondary programs are lined up. A lot of times colleges are set up by quarters, 3 quarters, and so trimesters kind of aligns better with that. So students kind of get an idea of I have less requirements, but I have more that I'm going to be working on throughout the year. And so it just gives them opportunities to kind of dig a little more in depth on those things they really want to learn about, but also gives them those opportunities as well.
The second term up there you see is exploration. So the benefit of the trimester with exploration is through a trimester system, students are a little bit more capable of exploring things that maybe they wouldn't have room in their schedule to otherwise do. So for example, there might be increased opportunities for us to develop courses tied to specific career paths and certifications. One of the things that we talked about with Mr. Thomas is, for example, you've got a student who maybe their focus has been down the health science pathway. And so really all their classes are designated for that. The trimester system seems to give some kids some wiggle room, so if they wanted to maybe dabble in a marketing class, which marketing classes also can fill up your schedule pretty quickly. But it gives students an opportunity to explore other things that maybe they didn't think they were interested in before, but maybe they want to explore a little bit. And so exploration is another benefit that the trimester system allows us to do. And there's much more of ways that people can explore. I know we've talked about taking advantage of the TriTech program over in Kennewick, that a lot of kids, maybe sometimes they don't have room in their schedule to do that, but allows them to go or whether it be some of the trade programs at Pasco High, auto, metals, wood shop, construction. Anyway, it just gives people some wiggle room to explore and maybe interest areas that maybe they didn't quite know before. The last one is intervention. Many of our kids, for whatever reasons, maybe they're not quite successful in classes. And so what intervention the trimester does, it allows us to create a system where kids receive immediate intervention. So for example, if a student doesn't meet standard or fails a first trimester English class or math class, we can take, with the system, with the trimester system, we can take a second trimester class, intervention class, and move that student into that class for second trimester so they get the immediate attention they need to either remediate or intervene on some of the things that they missed or some of the things that they need more time learning. And then that third trimester, they can go back to whatever the sequence is next was. So as opposed to you have a kid in a year-long class, he fails first semester, he takes second semester, and then you're waiting either for summer school or some other future event. The trimester system allows for some immediate intervention for kids who aren't quite successful in classes. So I don't know, Mr. Thomas, if you want to mention anything about that intervention or.
I think the immediate interventions are good. A lot of times we'll see students who, when they reach after their sophomore or junior year and they know they have to make up 9th grade English, then it becomes kind of a mental challenge to, do I want to go back and make this up, or am I at the end of my road? So we start seeing ourselves lose students. But I think it also gives us time where we could do behavioral interventions as well. For students who we may be losing in other social or behavioral areas, we have time to intervene and do some of those things without negatively affecting their educational, because they'll have time to get those classes in and do those different things.
Did I skip you on exploration? Did I get with you? Did
You
you have any
did,
other
but that's
thoughts?
okay.
Any other-
I just think exploration's great, because like he said, it gives them the opportunity. Right now, students have the 6-day schedule, and so if they want to do programs like TriTech, they may have to do a 0 or an 8th hour. And so having more opportunities to get those classes in gives students the opportunity to explore areas. The biggest thing that comes to my mind when we talk about exploration of classes is, I think they say every student changes their major 2 to 3 times once they get in college. I think having the opportunity to look at all those different programs while they're in high school gets them a little more directed by the time they're there. So hopefully our kids are more focused on their future vision and what they want to accomplish when they get to post-secondary plans.
So the last thing about this, the benefits and all of those 3 things, acceleration, exploration, and intervention, I think the impact for me, it really impacts every one of our students, no matter what situation they're in, whether they're experiencing a lot of success and need some enhancement, acceleration, or they need some intervention and need some extra support, or the exploration. So that's kind of our slide.
And I just wanted to add that we held a panel discussion with 3 other districts, Bellingham, Kelso, and I'm forgetting the third, to ask them specific questions around what was working in their master schedule, what wasn't working. And we also had teams go and visit Kelso and Sunnyside. And their number one thing that they said, it was just an explosion around acceleration. And that was the exciting part. When we spoke with kids, they wanted opportunities to do internships, job shadowing, mentoring, and a 30-credit 4-year program allowed them to do some of those things. And I also wanted to highlight from the Kelso, their data has shown significant increase in their on-time graduation rates, specifically around the interventions that they've been able to provide for those students. The students from Kelso basically said they didn't have any downside for them. They felt that they enjoyed their classes. It was a little bit more fast-paced. And when we met with Superintendent Whitney's student advisory, that was some of their biggest concern, is that they have some options as juniors and seniors. If we did not change the master schedule, they're basically locked into just taking the graduation requirements, and that's all they really are going to get during the day, unless they do something online or after hours. So anybody else want to speak to anything we learned from Sunnyside or Kelso around these 3 items? No? Okay. All right. So just to let you know, we're still continuing to look at the trimester and implications for particular groups of students. Tonight, for example, we have teachers from both CTE and special education who are meeting to develop action plans if we do move to a trimester. And we also, in your packet, have a draft implementation timeline so that you can see we have clear steps on what we're going to do to be prepared. The timeline was developed from input from staff that adequately provides teachers time to develop new coursework, as well as have professional training to support them about what does it look like for teaching in a 65-minute instructional block of time. We have a plan, comprehensive plan to communicate with parents, which includes 2 parent forum nights and grade level specific events. Ideally, we would be holding those from January into March. And both of the high schools have plans to work with students during their advisory and in grade level assemblies to process the trimester schedule, to look at new coursework, and to give us their input in terms of, does this match your interest and post-secondary plans. So we'll be continuing to engage the community and staff as we move forward with the trimester planning. And And we're just open to any feedback, questions, or suggestions you might have to improve our work moving forward tonight. We just want to have this feel like an informal conversation and get the information and input from you.
Thank you. Thank you all for all your work, and we know it took a lot of work to research this, and we look forward to this discussion. So just open it up to the board for questions or comments.
This implementation schedule, did this start like September, August 2017? So by, but the trimester system will be implemented by August, September of next year?
Right. Well, right now, we have put together a plan for the PAE and the PSD bargaining team to review, and then we'll be meeting with them in January to discuss those suggestions on how to move forward.
Okay, because I was a little worried too, because if we are bargaining with PAE and we have to do it in the summer, it would not allow this plan to go forth, would it? We'd have to postpone it a year, wouldn't we?
So we have an initial information sharing opportunity scheduled with PAE, and PSD bargaining teams are meeting, I believe, in the first or second week of January. The CCRI team is coming to meet with us, and then we'll continue that process after that. So.
Okay. Yeah, this is great. I went to something on this at our board thing, and we actually heard from Kelso Schools District, Bellingham, Snoqualmie, and Sunnyside. So those were the 4 that we heard from. We heard some really positive things, and they really were really positive about teachers being really scared about it initially, and once they get into it, they said that the teachers have really enjoyed it. So that was really good to hear. They called it remediation, exploration, and acceleration, and they said it has been great to close that opportunity gap as well, because there's, I was just looking at the industry certificates that we offer right now. It's like less than 2% of our kids graduate with industry. That's something that could really grow, as well as these accelerated courses and all of these opportunities for remediation. So it's really a win-win situation in a lot of ways. I too worry a little bit about compressing, a semester's worth of curriculum into a trimester. So one of my questions is how the AP system will work, where they have, all of these tests in May, and now they have to compress this, and are we gonna start those classes the second trimester? Are they gonna go all 3 trimesters? So that's one of my questions, is how that particular system will work.
Well, I'll feel free to jump in, but a couple of the conversation pieces that we've heard from these other districts is that it actually allows more time for those AP classes. You're moving from a 50-minute period to 65-minute periods. So some of the biggest proponents of a trimester schedule are the AP teachers. So go ahead.
So with AP classes, the great benefit is the longer class period. Depending upon the AP class that's being taught, some of them are still offered the full year. So a more rigorous AP class, something that has a lot of content, might still be offered the full year versus 2 trimesters. Something else that schools do is that they'll offer it for 2 trimesters, but then the 3rd trimester, they'll take 1 period of like an AP study session. So like, let's say I'm taking AP Calculus and AP Spanish. So I take those trimester 1 and 2, and then trimester 3, I have an open hour to study and prepare for my exams. Because the second trimester would end at the end of March, and traditionally I've taught AP Chemistry, that's when you end your content, so that you can start preparing for the exams in May, and you have all of April. So it's pretty consistent with our current timeline.
Right.
What will happen, using chemistry as an example there, if a student takes their year's worth of chemistry in the first 2 trimesters, I heard you say they could go study for exams and do other things, but there's this kind of lag if they want to take a second year of chemistry or go into another science, and this isn't just for science, this is for English and other stuff. You not only have the summer lag, but you have another trimester. Did anybody say, the groups you guys talked to, that there's a little bit of gap there that kids are sliding a little bit more than they normally would in a certain subject matter area?
That's actually kind of the opportunity for teachers to get together, and they've already done some initial planning around where they could offer more electives and deeper exploration within that content area. So I'm also thinking about what Sunnyside said is they offer, they can start in on some dual credit classes that will align with summer classes with the community college as well. So it's not a downtime the trimester. They can actually move into another elective or into another course that may be aligned with CVC or a post-secondary.
Can they move into another class of the same subject? So, again, using chemistry, if you normally have chemistry 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's 2 years worth of chemistry, can you take chemistry 1, 2, and 3 all in 1 year? Or English, if you usually take freshman then sophomore, can you take freshman 1, freshman 2, and then sophomore 1 at the end of your freshman year?
So those are decisions that will have to be made collaboratively within our schools. Yes, at Kelso, they allow for acceleration. So if I come in and I'm just on grade level, I'm going to take Algebra 1 as a freshman, I can still make it to calculus by the end of my senior year because I can take Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry 1 my freshman year, start with Geometry 2 my sophomore year. So depending upon student interests and what we're able to offer, yes. With chemistry, as an example, if a student did have their chemistry aligned, Chemistry 1, Chemistry 2, we offer a variety of elective courses that they could take for that last trimester. If they're a student where chemistry or science aligns with their college and career goals, we offer anatomy and physiology, all types of different things that the student could step into to use the chemistry that they just learned. So they're applying their content there.
So it won't be all the rigorous academic courses are offered first and second trimester, and the third one's a bunch of electives. It's gonna. I'm just thinking of the creativity in order to balance students' load so that you're not taking English, all your core courses in 2/3 of the year, and then, now we got this last third, it's all electives.
So yeah, so you have to balance that. It's actually kind of one of the benefits is that it's unlikely that a student will end up taking all their core classes at one time. So some students might start chemistry first try and second try. Others might do chemistry second try and third try.
And then one last question, it's, what's the percent time difference than the students spending in class to get the same half credit? So right now they go spend 60 minutes 5 days a week for a semester. Now they're going to go to 65 minutes, whatever you said, 5 days a week for 1/3 of the year. What's the class time reduction in a percentage base?
So you can help me out with the math. But the way we kind of calculate it is that we are in a 50-minute period right now, and it'll go to 65 minutes. And when you kind of add it all up for the first trimester and second trimester, it's really about, I want to say the difference of about 7 days of instruction. Kelso and Sunnyside have been whittling away with that and compacting their curriculum even more so that students don't miss out on going in depth with real priority standards. So what they've told us is, as they've gotten better around designing the curriculum, they feel like the standards are actually being taught more deeply, and it's more effective use of time. So they've not feeling like they're missing out on what they've been able to provide for students.
7 days total in two semesters?
Pardon me?
Or 7 days per semester or 7 days total?
7 days total.
So
over the
7
course
out of
two
120
semesters versus
days?
2 trimesters,
And
when you do the minutes.
with a longer class period, there's less transitions,
Yeah.
so you have more functional time. In a lesson, you have to start with an entry task, kind of set them up, get them started, then you got to stop them, close it down, that type of thing. And if you have a longer period, you can go into greater depth in that short. And even though you only have 60 days, each lesson can go into greater depth. And I think both schools have commented on the opportunity to really ensure that they're hitting state standards. Sometimes we teach things because they're interesting to us as teachers, but they might not align to state standards, so ensuring that is the focus and priority of our schools.
What about your books? Don't some of them have like 80 to 90 lessons per semester? Aren't they set up for quarters or semesters largely? So those lessons are going to be hard to translate into trimesters rather than quarters or semesters?
I think that's just part of that discussion that they have to have as like ELA teachers. They're going to have to look at what the curriculum guide says, where they're going to need to either tighten or spend more time on certain standards. So it's not necessarily driven by the book as much as it's going to be what are the most critical standards that we need to hit to prepare our students for the state assessments. So I'm trying to think of what else we've heard from them as far as what I do know, what we've heard from the kids and the students that we've also interviewed is they are all over having 5 periods and having more time with their teacher. The relationships are critical, important, and of course, just having the reduction in homework. Instead of you studying and having homework for 6 classes, they have 5. They feel it's much more manageable and that they have closer relationships with their teachers.
And I think our curriculum is really not the textbook, it's those standards. So those instructional materials that we've purchased are flexible and can be used in any schedule. There are trimester schools all over the country that use the materials that we've purchased, so we can look to them as a guide.
Well, I have heard a lot from students too that they are just excited to be able to take classes that they cannot fit in their schedules currently. And as I watch my senior, who is my 4th child, he is a kinesthetic learner. And he has, because it's his senior year and he has all these things out of the way, he has been able to take classes that he's truly interested in. And so he has the best grades he's ever had his whole educational process. So I'm hoping that he's more excited about school because he gets to do things that are creative. And especially, you know, we've learned a little bit about the gender gap. And I think this could really affect, girls tend to do a lot better in school than boys. And when we give these boys some, you know, more some of these other things, then I think that it can really help that. And I think that's something that even my son, he's not a book learner, but having these extra classes is going to be huge. And, you know, I think America is great because of their ingenuity and their creativity. And I think we've lost some of that in going so core. And I hope this pulls us out of some of those things. One thing we did learn in this class that all those schools that you've listened to, talked to, it's only an hour, so nothing like the depth you've been in. But one thing that we did learn was that, I lost my train of thought there. Anyway, that you know what, you're gonna have to come back to me because I lost that thought. So, but,
I know that.
but I'm excited about it. I think it's gonna be great for our schools, and it's gonna be good.
I would just like to say, with our group, we were meeting bi-monthly and then with the leadership teams every single month. And what the teachers wanted, and to be right out in front and clear, is that we're not doing this to game the system around credits, that we are really doing this to transform educational experiences for kids and to have an opportunity for teachers to be more innovative. And we heard from our students who are struggling that it is very hard for them to get help before and after school. Some of them are working to support their families, some of them are dependent on the transit, and it's very difficult. And we felt this was just a moral imperative for us to have interventions within the day and feel like the trimester schedule gets at that a lot better than our current 6-period day.
Yes, I remembered my thought. One of the things they said in this class was that most schools, 80% of schools, are still on the same schedule that they opened with. When was Pasco School District?
I think Jim Brown has 42 years of teaching under his belt, and he said it's the same schedule as when he started
And
at
think
Pasco
about
High.
what has changed in 42 years. I mean,
Yeah.
there were not computers
Right.
in schools 42 years ago. 107 years. Anyway, it's about time there is a change. The world looks very different
Yes.
than it did 107 years
Right.
ago.
And we also know that a schedule is not a silver bullet, and Jenny can tell you that, you know, they're using a trimester and a block, that there's no perfect schedule. We just feel that this restructuring this time is a huge variable for us to increase learning opportunities for kids, so.
Thank you so much for the information, and I think I appreciate and I agree with much of what has been said. Obviously, just changing in of itself doesn't mean it's changed for the better. It could be changed for the worse, so we have to make sure that that's what's happening. I really like the flexibility. I think that's something that we are missing in today's education. We don't have as much personalization, flexibility for students. If you look at the required courses, it just limits them so much. There's hardly any time for exploration. And like I know if we look at Delta, or the kids do internships, they do community service, capstones. I would actually like to see all that come back. I don't think everyone would like that statement, but I think that is an essential part of education, and I think we are missing something when we've taken that all away. That being said, I have many questions and concerns about this. You commented on one that about gaming the number system. I mean, if we look at a day, the day's still, I don't think we're lengthening the days, so if you just look at the year, they're in school essentially the same amount of time, and we're now going to give them many more credits. So I think that's a hard sell, hard explanation. I don't know what you would respond to those people that have that concern is, we're going to just teach more effectively, or we're going to less passing time. I mean, the passing times are already like 4 minutes. Like, I don't even know how the kids use the restroom. Like, I've been in the high schools during passing time, and they just, like that, 6 minutes?
7.
7? Okay. Are all of them? One of them told me 4 for one, but if are they all the same? 7? I mean, that is just like, whoo, if our schools are so big, I mean, you barely have time to get. Anyway, could you comment on that? Because that's a major concern I have, and one that I think is hard to explain adequately, or anyone, maybe our principals.
Let's go back to 107 years, right? 107 years ago, they created school, and they said, go teach. Well, since then, we've said, teachers, go teach. So in 20 years ago, teachers used to say, I love to teach this because that's what I like. Not because it's a standard, or because it's because it was a teacher preference. Now we've moved away from teacher preference to real focus. Here's the focus, and here's the standard that all students will receive. Now, what we've been doing is, you hear next generation standards for science, next gen, and teachers have been preparing for the specific standards, and we've bought curriculum for the standards. So how do we teach a standard using this curriculum? So now what we've been doing is, now we're focusing, and we're tightening up what we're supposed to be teaching, what the student's supposed to be learning. Let's focus on what we're supposed to be teaching and learning, and it's focused. So it's no longer, oh, I've been teaching this for 25 years because this is something I really like, because that was my background, and I really like it. Nothing to do with standards. Nothing to do with the standard that was required by the state for learning. It was because it was preference. And because we had the time, why not? And just throw it in there, teacher. What else do you like? Throw it in there. Well, we've opened that position. We've had lots of conversation and lots of change. And education has changed tremendously over our programs. Now what we're asking is, let's go look at the intervention right away. We have 60 days of focus. What are we supposed to teach, and how are we supposed to teach that standard using that specific material? Because the material is we bought this much material. The standard is this big, right? So we have lots of options for teachers to use to teach that standard. But the question is, we don't have to teach the 150 pages for that standard. Here's what we need for that standard. And the students, because we're examining and testing and finding out, how do we know the students learn? And we answer that question through specific assessments. So the bottom line is, the focus of what we do is very specific now. And it's a 60-day focus. And we know in 60 days if the student learned it or not. And then we can intervene right away within 60 days. Because the system we have now is, it takes us 180 days to find out some data, if the kid survived it or not. So it's like, it's summer. Oh, now let's look at the data. Yep, that kid didn't miss it. He needs summer school. Oh, that kid missed it. Oh, we need this. That kid needed that extension because he wants to go to the academy. Well, we kind of missed it. Well, now we have 60 days that we can do and look at and create data for information so we can move the kid along right away. So that system of focus is very different of what we used to do. And so even if the credits didn't change, I say this system was the best benefit for all. So it's like, we need to focus on how we're supposed to learn. So that's a little bit of how you answer the focus pieces. We're most focused than we've ever been, and we're continued to be. And that's why 3 years later, we're here. So we started 3 years ago about this.
I just wanted to add, I agree with Mr. Cital on all those points. So specifically right now, Chiawana teachers, as we speak, they're gathering together with other teachers that teach the same thing as them, the same content, and that's what they're doing. This is all the standards we taught in a semester or a year, and so now, as a teacher group, we are agreeing on and targeting the most essential, the most important standards that our kids must know in order to be successful. That's what they're doing right now. And so it's almost the opposite of that question. They're targeting on the most essential standards that they feel that their kids need. And then the other thing that this is doing that's really benefiting us is because in the trimester system, student A could take teacher Mrs. Smith first trimester in ninth grade English and could have second trimester English with another teacher. What it's doing is it's really focusing on, now we all really need to be on the same page. We can't just go in our room, shut our doors, and teach whatever we want. We really have, because they might have me first trimester and you second trimester, and it'd be a disservice to them if we weren't agreeing on what that 2 trimesters needed to cover. So that's one of the things it's doing for us and our teachers, is they're really focusing in on the most essential standards that kids must know and putting that either into a 1 trimester or a 2 trimester package for students. I think I heard it best when I think Dr. Marzano, an educational guru, said if we taught every standard, it'd take 22 years to do it. So we can't do that. What we've got to do is we've got to agree on the most essential, most important standards that our kids must know, and then really focus on that as a group of teachers. So anyway, I don't know if
That's great. That was good. So another one of my questions is I was wondering if you could comment on the number of districts in our state that use this system and how big their high schools are, because and I'll get to my question about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we know, like, there's 295 districts, I think.
I can start this. So the districts, as mentioned, that we spoke to was Sunnyside, Kelso, and Bellingham. We've really focused on Sunnyside and Kelso. Now, Sunnyside is a 3A school, maybe a little under, they have 4A school, about a little bit smaller than we are. Kelso's a little bit smaller than that. One of the things that I've heard approached to me is that same question. If this is so great, why isn't everybody else doing it? And here's what I'll say to that. One thing I know, in speaking with Sunnyside and Kelso, they both say they have visitors, like we did a tour there. And so I asked them, how many people are you talking to? And I know Kelso and Sunnyside have both mentioned to me, John, every week we have 3 to 4 visitors come check us out and ask us all these questions. And that's personal visits. So Sunnyside had to hire a specific person to arrange and organize all these visits. So I guess the main thing is there's a lot of people thinking about doing it, or there's a lot of people just figuring out how to do it. Our counterparts in Kennewick and Richland, we meet with principals there, and we always ask them, what are you doing, what are you doing? And some folks are pushing a lot of these credits to the middle school, and some folks are doing a lot of 0 and 8th hour stuff outside the school day. And so obviously we've talked about the benefits and disadvantage of that. So that's my answer. There's a lot of people thinking about doing it, and maybe we're just one of the few that are kind of on the front edge and want to do the best for our kids. But that's the thought I had with that.
And the other piece of why we're doing is because of need. The students we serve, and it's just a need. What is it we want our students to learn? We have 80% graduation rate, so we still have 16 that aren't graduating. And then we look at the top 20. What extensions do they need? We talk about colleges, and we are touching colleges, but we're still not touching the community part, the civic part. All the pieces we can do with our kids going and doing some civic work, the service learning pieces. We used to do the senior project, bringing some of that piece back. All those pieces are needs that our kids really need. So it's like, so when we start looking at what kind of system do we need to have so we can provide that. So that's what I'm saying, even though the system that we have right now, we went back to 20 credits, we would probably still look at something different. And it's just because of the need that we need to service. And because when we had senior project, it was a wonderful community event. When we had our safety pieces, wonderful community events. I mean, we've had great things, but because we did this 24 credits and 20 credits, we had to concise of what is it that we do and stop giving kids opportunities that they really needed. So something like in that nature.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
Also, I'll just add to that, as was stated earlier, many schools are still under the same system they were under when they started. And we can ask the question why. And I'll tell you, my thoughts on that is change is hard. It is. When you ask a school district to change something like that, that is a hard process. It is not easy. And so my answer to that is because it's hard. And sometimes it's just easier to stay with what you have. You know, you just think, you know what, that's going to be really hard to do. But we're under the opinion that we don't do something or don't do something just because it's hard. You know, if we're going to do something and it's right that we believe is right for our kids, then, you know, we need to do the hard work and we need to make it happen. But I don't know that everybody's willing to do that. And so that would be my opinion on that. So, and I'll also speaking as a counselor and as we've met as counselors on a monthly basis, and we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about this. And as we have students coming into our offices and sitting there and wanting things, wanting to be able to take classes, and as a counselor to say, I'm sorry, you know, we cannot fit that into your schedule. I know you want it, and I know that that's something that you have a passion about, but, you know, we only have 2 semesters, and we've got to get everything in there. I can't put that in your schedule if you want to graduate on time. And so looking at this model, it really does give them that opportunity to be able to take those classes that they want to, that they have passion about. And it's true, you know, that you know, these kids, if they're taking classes that they're passionate about, and again, I'll speak to that because as a counselor, that's what we do. We track grades and we track classes and credits. And when we can get kids into classes that they are passionate about, they do better. They do. Overall, they do better. Not just in that class. Because they're happy, they want to come to school. Their attendance is better. You know, and I see that on a daily basis. And so I just think that it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. It won't be, and we know that, and we've been doing this for, you know, this past year or longer, and it has not been easy, but we're willing to put in the time and the effort that it takes.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for your comment. That's great input. Obviously, Mr. Wallach addressed this a little bit with the size, and that's a big concern of mine. You know, where if you because essentially every student needs like almost an IEP. Like we have the high school and beyond plan that's used with varying degrees of effectiveness, or you know, some of the students aren't even really aware of that. But this, it seems like it will take like a near every student meeting. What's our plan? What's our outline? What are you going to do so that we don't miss out on things? And I agree. I'm frustrated. I just found out this week that in 8th grade, my son cannot do band and take Spanish. And I was thinking, okay, well, you're going to get your math credit, and you can get your Spanish credit. I speak Spanish. This is great. We've been working on this. And then I found out, oh, you can't do both of those. They conflict. I was just freaking out. Like, you got to be kidding me. So, I mean, I'd like to see those types of things change so that we don't immediately eliminate every single student that wants to do band from taking Spanish. You know, I mean, that's just not right in my mind. So those are the last question I'll answer, and then if Mr. Christensen has some comments. So as far as the length of the period, a major concern I have as well is if we're condensing more and focusing on standards and we've moved to more of an online curriculum, I worry about the students that don't have internet access at home. Since we're doing more credits in the same year, longer periods, condensed, I just, in my mind, it tells me, okay, there's going to have to be some work done at home if we're condensing more into our day, or more standards, more curriculum, whatever. And so that's a worry I have as well. Like, what about our students that don't have great access at home to Wi-Fi? How are they going to be able to keep up on some of those?
I have some comments.
Yeah. Just
Yep, you're good.
is it on?
Okay, cool. At my school with Dr. Rodriguez, we do trimester systems, and I have found that compared to my friends that go to Chiawana, I have so much less homework than they do. It's crazy. Like, I don't know if you're like so excited about that fact, but Okay, but
Students on the board.
Tell us how it is.
but we do projects and we take up the entire class period and we focus more, and I feel like we get more done, but at the same time I feel like at the end of the class period I have more time to get homework done and catch up, and like when the class periods are longer then you get more done, but then at the same time you are able to complete everything. Like if you have only an hour, which I've noticed because we've had to change our schedule a little bit with Thanksgiving and stuff, when you only have an hour, you only have enough to say, here's what I want you to do, and then go home and do it. But in the trimester system, here's what I want you to do, and I'll help you do it here, and we can all work on it together, and then I don't have to take that home with me. And I still do like essays and stuff at home, but I kind of get more feedback while I'm in class. That kind of helps me out, so.
Yeah, that's great. This is why we have students on our board. It's invaluable feedback. And I've already said this before, I'm in favor of us adding another Delta school to our district because we're talking about equity so much, and we're, out of the 5,000 students that are comprehensive high schools, there are more that need that smaller environment. It's no fault of anyone, it's just that that's what the students benefit from, or that's their personality. And so it's hard sometimes to compare because Delta kind of selects out a certain group of students. So I think some of the comparisons are tricky, whereas at Chihuahua, if you have 2,600 students, it's going to be you don't have selected out the students that maybe would succeed in that type of a model. So there's definitely going to be lots of growing pains, but I definitely like a lot of the positives.
Dr. Rich, I've been invited to a couple things, so I know the district has some things in place that are, not some things, but they're working on some things in place. So you heard a presentation, I know, from Mark Garrett about 1-to-1 ratio with computers. So I know there's a process that he's starting to figure out how do we get those laptops in the homes of our students. If we have a 1-to-1 true ratio, then they shouldn't be in cows in the classroom. They need to be in the homes of these kids so they can get. So I know there's a process that they're working on to make that available to students, and I also know, in talking with Mr. Garrett, they're trying to figure out a way to get hotspots throughout the city so that students, now that they have a computer in their home, how can they access that hotspot so they can access some of that work. So I know the district's working on those two things.
I would just add to that, our neighbors in Richland have already started the 1-to-1, and when we meet, or when I meet with the local superintendents every other Friday, I'm constantly checking in with Richland. Both Kennewick and I constantly check in, what's going well, what kinds of things are you troubleshooting, and so we let them go first. They'll get all the bugs worked out, and then we'll learn from them. But one of the things that they are exploring doing is sending home a personal hotspot to those kids that absolutely are having barriers to access. So by the time we're ready to do that, Richland will have all the bugs worked out, and we'll just copy all their great work.
Yeah, as far as ironing out the bugs, I hope we're learning something from like the implementation of the STEM curriculum and just even our purchase of new curriculum, because if we're going to do this, we want to get it right? And I know a lot of people are working on it, but we're talking about, nearly 5,000 high school students, and I'm all for change for the better if it's going to be a better thing, but it's an immense workload, and I think the numbers you gave were 60% of teachers, and it matches what you said before, right? It's teacher that's going to be resistant to change, and so I wouldn't expect that to be 90% right now, but we can't work out all the bugs as we go. We want to have as much done ahead of time, because this is, somewhat terrifying to a lot of our parents and students and teachers, and we just don't want to, let stuff fall through the cracks.
One of the things listed on here is there's not as many districts on this schedule on both the AB block and the trimesters. I know that the class that we went to, there's representatives from, I would say, a good portion of the 295 schools at our school board conferences. And the class that I went to on this was probably the most packed class of any of the classes that I went to. It was standing room only. They should have put it in the biggest room that they had. Right now, not as many districts are on it, but with this 24 credit thing, it's forced our hand to do something different, and most are going to one of these, at least in that room that we talked to. So I think this is the con there is going to change. I wondered about the middle school level though. Right now at the elementary level, I believe we're on trimesters. Aren't we on semester system at the middle school? And why would we stay on a semester system at the middle school if we're at trimesters in the elementary and the high school?
Right. And I believe our initial conversations with our middle school partners, administration and teacher has been, if we do move to a trimester schedule, that we'll come up with an action plan on how we're going to bring the middle schools on board and have it feel like it's a seamless K-12 system. So we don't want it to be chunky or interrupted for our students and our families, so.
And I think that's the beginning too,
Yes.
because my middle school student right now cannot take the classes that she wants, and she's struggles in some subjects. And I love the ability to extend. I mean, I think it was Kelso that said that, like, that you could take Algebra 1, you could actually teach Algebra 1 over the 3 semesters, or you can teach it over 2. So the kids that need a little bit more.
It's all about time, creating that variable.
And then you can also have, you can do it that way, or you can have a remediation class to help them with whatever. So there's just so many options, and I just think that would benefit. Why, wood shop, Spanish. My student can't take band. She wants to be in band and choir right now. She can't. So there's just so many things that would be so nice to be able to let them do, explore their passions to make them more excited about school.
A group of us did meet with Scott Seaman at the WERA conference 2 weeks ago. We had a private lunch session with him and asked him, from the time that he presented a year and a half ago, when there was less than 10% of the high schools on a trimester system, what's happening now. And he said now that the rubber's really hitting the road and high schools are seeing that kids are struggling to meet this on-time credit requirement, that we're going to see a lot of high schools change within the next 2 years to more of a trimester or a block type system. Federal Way, I think in Seattle, went to trimesters. Federal Way went to an 8-period day. So the urgency and the worry is really starting to happen across the state right now.
And he is who taught the class at WASDA.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, he's a great resource for us. And again, I can't speak enough about this committee and bringing the 2 high schools together. We have really been thoughtful. We've had great challenging questions. Sometimes we've had some hair pulling. But I mean, we really have been slow about this and trying to build as much consensus between the 2 high schools. And that has just been tremendous. I would say that's probably what everybody would say has been one of the most positive outcomes from this process, is just the sense of collaboration and all of us working towards the same goals together.
Seth, are you on a trimester system already?
No, we are on a block schedule.
Okay.
So our students go to 4 periods a day. Our classes are actually an hour and a half. And so, the question comes up about a longer class period. When we made a change 4 years ago to the traditional 6-period day to 4-period day, what it really created for us was a need to really examine what's taking place in the classroom. And it really became a catalyst to some pretty significant changes in the approach that we take at Horizons. And I would say while over a quarter of an hour and a half classes versus a semester of 50-minute classes, you do lose some instructional time. But being able to be in there with an hour and a half with your students every day, the depth that you're able to reach on a daily basis with your students is something that more than makes up for the loss of instructional minutes.
So I think this is exciting, and it's been a big body of work, and it sounds like it will be continuing, and I think that's something to look forward to as well. So we're going from a 6-period day or 7-period day, essentially, to a 6-period day. Is that how that's going to work?
6 to 5.
Well, right, but you've got 7 periods in there because you're splitting lunch, right? I mean, aren't you essentially the same? You have 7 periods, all the same. Kids are in class for 6, and then you're going to 6. So now we're going to get a 65-minute lunch versus a 50-minute lunch, or God, I don't know how all that works. So I'll let you guys work that out. Will the day be longer? I mean, there's more minutes in a 5-period, 65-minute day.
You lose all transitions, that's why. All the transitions,
Well, you lose one transition.
and no, it's the same hours.
Okay.
The bell skip.
I'll take your word for
They're
it.
about the same.
So that'll work. What about 0 and 8th hour? Are those options going away? Are those still going to be there?
We're hoping that they can stay a semester for 0 and 8. We still have lots of conversations, because
Okay.
if we do a trimester, it's too early. You give an hour, 15, hour, 20 minutes before already 6:30, so that's really difficult. So
Yeah,
there's lots of conversations
sure.
of looking at a semester for 0 and 8, or lots of conversations to keep it the way it is right now, and it doesn't affect the day, and it's just a semester piece.
Are there many students currently doing 0 and 8th hour? So while we're gaining an extra period, I'm not sure what to call it, an extra trimester, an extra, whatever that period is, we would be losing potentially some 0 and 8th hour. So that there's a little bit of a trade-off there. Now, hopefully we can fit it all in the normal schedule. That would be wonderful, but I can see that being a little bit of a challenge there, where we're losing some of that instruction
Our hope
time.
is to maintain the 0 and 8th hour opportunity, because that really helps support athletes, musicians, and then some kids
And the whole
needing
idea
some.
is just options. What is
Options.
it that we need and what do
Right.
kids need?
No,
So
yeah.
once we figure out the need, then we'll have, like, the conversation is, let's go see what it is, because 0 hour tends to be a kid that is a band.
Yep.
Jazz band,
Right.
marching band,
Seminary.
choir, seminary. I mean, we have lots of stuff for the extension. A kid that's going to Tri-Tech might need a health, so it's 0 hours so they can do Tri-Tech. So it's just the extension of what the kid needs during the day.
Right, and most students are not taking 0 hour because they want to.
Get out of bed at
Well,
6, what?
So if we can create a schedule where they can get the classes that they need.
Outside of
without
0 hour.
having to,
Yeah.
and I know that as a counselor, because when they come to me and I say, the only way you're gonna do that is if you do it 0 hour, they're just like, oh, I have
Right.
to get up at, 5:30 in the morning. And so that would be another, I think, may benefit to some of those students that are having to take a 0 hour and are not always successful at it, because it is early.
No, we've been there.
And class
So-
like yearbook, marching band, it's still 8th hour
Yeah.
classes. So that, I don't
Drama.
see them, that way more kids can participate after school. Yearbook, you get lots of kids with a camera and go take pictures. So those things will probably still exist.
So I like this. I think change is good. This is going to force us to be more efficient in our instruction. If my calculation is right, it's 65 hours in a trimester versus 75 in a semester, which is going to be good for some students, because some students, I believe, just get bored in class and check out. So might be a little more difficult for our teachers, and we've got to be mindful of that and giving them the supports that they need. But I'm excited about it, and I think the thing that I find most exciting and has the biggest potential is to get some good electives that give our students some good hands-on experience. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that and what kind of opportunities we can give our students. It's critical that they get, that they learn to read and write and that stuff, but they've got to get something that gives them some exposure to what's out there in their future. And so I'm excited about that. But thank you for this work, and look forward to future reports.
And I do want to say that our teachers are real committed to this piece. They know that it's a lot of work, and they've been putting in, so the commitment of what is coming, they're there. And I'm speaking for Pasco High teachers that is like, hey, we need to do this. Yes, they are committed to learning. So they know who they have in front of them. They're committed to building relationships, so they have to go create different scopes, so they're committed. So yes, so that it's a lot of work that a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
I had a question. If a student gets a couple credits, 2-3 credits in math and foreign language in middle school, and they're dedicated and they don't need a lot of remediation, and they decide to take 7.5 credits each of their first 3 years, they could have all their credits done in 3 years. Is there going to be schedule holding them back, in that the counselor is going to say, well, you can't get those classes in? I know. So instead, now you have to take some kind of enrichment that maybe they don't want to take, right? So you're going to have students that don't need the remediations that theoretically could graduate in 3 years. And are we going to hold them back by creating schedules that don't allow them to finish in time?
What we have and what council has done in Sunnyside is they have cohorts. Every year you have senior classes, like what we have right now, junior classes, sophomore classes, freshman classes. Now, obviously, we can be flexible in lots of things, right? Because we can have conversations, but right now, everything is, here's freshman classes, here's the extensions. Now, if a kid is done in the junior year, we still have running start, lots of opportunity for college. So it's like, if a kid's gonna be done in the junior year, it's like, look, you got free college at CBC for a year. So.
That's my question, is
Yeah,
can they
those-
finish and maybe they don't want to graduate, but is there flexibility where instead of doing running start over the 2 years, you do half of running start, or you go get a full year of college credits there?
And a lot of students, even now, who I have, they graduate with a lot more than the 22. I've had students graduate with as many as 30 credits. And that's okay. They're okay with that because they're getting more opportunities. And these are the students who are coming to us from middle school with several credits. And they're also doing 0 hour, maybe they have, 10th Avenue, singers, and then they're doing an 8th hour, they're in theater or a yearbook. And so, you have a student who's already coming to you with a few credits, and then they're doing 0 and 8th hour through their 4 years. It adds up pretty quick. And so it's not uncommon for that. So that's not necessarily going to be something new, because we do have students who are doing that. And those students, just because of the situation they're in, they do graduate with a lot more credits.
Yeah, I was just hoping there'd be like I said, the kid that says, I want to have the full high school experience, at least for 3 years. I'm going to do sports or band, dance, whatever, after school. And I'm coming to you with 3 credits, and you're telling me I can get 22.5 credits additional in 3 years. Help me do that, and then figure out how I get a full year's worth of running start or college in the high school or whatever programs we're offering at the time, instead of us saying, well, you can't really take 7.5 credits towards your requirements because we're not offering them, and so we're going to give you 6 and you can do some extra 1.5 credits that don't go towards your requirements. At least we help them knock it out and help them with that career pathway for finishing their 24 credits in 3 years and having a full year worth of some kind of technical college.
I want 3 science classes second semester. We have biotech, nanotech, chemistry, physics, AP, it's available. If you want to have 3 science classes, so be it. We offer, go take them. So yes, we have kids, our children today are busy. We have some that are they live on being busy. So yes, the flexibility within that is always available.
And we're gonna, as some of the other board members alluded to, have additional conversations before they even start 9th grade, because there's gonna be so many options, and they're gonna plan out their pathway earlier, it sounds like. Okay.
Several of the schools that were there had changed the requirements. The board can change the requirements within a district. So in order to avoid that, we don't have any more seniors coming to school, a lot of them changed, because the block system, I think, gives you 32 credits, is that correct? And the trimester system 30, and many of them changed to 27 or 28 required credits for graduation. So that eliminated the I don't even have to come my senior year, so that's something we could look into as well.
Scott, just to add, we asked the same question to Mr. Gummel, who's the principal at Kelso. They've been doing the trimester for 3 years. They just completed 3 years, so this is their 4th year. He said in those years, 2 kids have graduated, met the requirements, and decided to leave early. And he said the majority of the kids, what gets them to stay is the culture and the relationships, that they don't want to leave early for something else. So he says that they stay because of those reasons they mentioned.
They get free college.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But currently we have kids that graduate first semester. We had one last year that was gonna go on a mission and needed to work and get things done, and all the credits were done. He walked in June, but it's like, hey, I need 3 months to do these pieces. Well, we're gonna be open and flexible. We're not gonna say, no, you're done, but here's the career piece that they take. So, we're flexible in those pieces, but it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen.
With as has kind of been alluded to, with the amount of flexibility and all these options, so not only if we continue along this path, if we implement this, but the new program is going to require so much personal attention. Are we hiring additional counselors? I mean, we don't want to kill all the counselors and make them work till 10 o'clock every night, meeting with students to make sure they have an appropriate plan. And obviously I'm just speaking generally not anything with around bargaining or but I'm just saying is that is a concern of mine, right? Because if we implement this whole new system, and the new system involves greater flexibility and personalization than ever before, and we already have the largest high schools in the state, I just can see us driving people insane.
And we've
without
been
extra
very
help.
intentional about asking those questions, what are the impacts on different, staff members? Because we want to be very conscientious and provide this, the right amount of support. So if we do go into a change, that we are adjusting resources to support everybody, staff and students.
So on that note, I hope that people will be honest. If this is a lot of work and a big body of work, don't say, yeah, okay, we'll do it just because you feel like that's what we've got to do. I mean, we do that in Pasco, which is good and bad. But please be honest, and please let them know that we need to know. Don't just say, yeah, we'll do it if that's what we have to do to keep our job, because we don't want to drive people out. We have a hard enough time getting them here. So let's do what we need to do to make it work right.
We have a full intention of keeping the planning team together over the course of 2 years so that we are monitoring the implementation for those very reasons and trying to get as much input from our community as well as our staff. How's it going? What's working for you? Where do we need to troubleshoot? So it's not just implement and then hands off. We really want to have a monitoring system and process in place.
What are the limitations on running start? So with this additional flexibility that we're gonna have, can a kid go to running start for 4 years instead of going 2 years to high school and then 2 years pretty much at college? Let's say they said, I want to have a full high school experience and I want to go to the running start in the morning for 3 years or something like that. Is there a limit of 2 years, calendar years?
Universities have parameters. You have to be pretty strict on who can.
They have to wait until they're
16 and
You
juniors.
gotta have junior status, I think is the language.
Junior status?
And the only other requirement for Running Start is, if you're going to be in Running Start, you have to have at least one required graduation class through your senior year. So they would have to save at least one class their senior year to be able to qualify for Running Start. Because if they've completed all their graduation requirements, they no longer qualify for Running Start because they're considered graduated. And so,
So the plan I just mentioned wouldn't work.
Right.
Knocking out all your credits in 3 years and then
Well,
going
I
to
mean,
a running
no,
start.
right, I mean, and that's, if you're wanting, it depends on what your plan is. Yeah, if your plan is doing Running Start, then no, you wouldn't do that. You would need to save out at least one class, but you can take that at Running Start. So it's not even like you have to take that at the high school. So if they're saving their senior English for their senior year, but they've knocked everything out their junior year, it's not like they have to come back to the high school and take it. They can take that required class at CBC at Running Start, which is probably a required class for college anyway. So it's a class they would need. So it really does not affect them at all.
And they just transfer the credit back to the high school.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because that's why it's a dual credit. They're getting high school credit and college credit for it at the same time. So it would work.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you for the presentation and the discussion this evening, and thank you for all the work that you put in, both for this presentation and in figuring out the intricacies of and the challenges with this program. And we welcome everyone to join us at our regularly scheduled board meeting at 6:30.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, and we appreciate the time in front of you today.